Good. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting for the Council of the Town of Petawawa to order for August 10th, 2026. Welcome to members of council, members of staff, and our guests that we have with us here this evening. We'll begin this evening's meeting with the reading of the land acknowledgement, and this evening it will be Councillor Roots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We acknowledge that the town of Petawawa was incorporated on the traditional unceded and unsurrendered Algonquin, Mississippi territory in 1865. Just 8 years before Reserve Number 39 was established at Golden Lake. We recognize Petawawa's long history, with predates the first arrivals of the colonists as early as 1613, and its significance to the indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live upon it, whose spiritual practices are tied to this land. We commit to understanding the profound impact of harm and colonization, honoring the indigenous rights, and embracing reconciliation as a core responsibility. We further commit to honoring the reconciliation process by learning about the 7 grandfather teachings of love, respect, bravery, truth, honesty, humility, and wisdom, and applying these lessons to our stewardship of this land.
Thank you. And now I'd ask everybody in attendance here with us this evening to please stand for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you very much. I need a motion now to approve this evening's agenda. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that the agenda for the August 10th, 2026 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on any of this evening's matters? Okay, then we'll go to approval of minutes. We had a special council meeting July 20th, 2026. I need a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Donovan, that the minutes of the special meeting of council held July 20th, 2026 be approved as printed and circulated. Any questions, concerns on the minutes? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, now we'll go to our presentations. First up, we have a public transportation feasibility study. This is the phase 2 of the final report. I'd like to welcome Thomas Pacey from Dillon Consulting Limited to give us the phase 2 of the final report, which is the most exciting part of the report because it has all of the recommendations on how we as a community can move forward with some potential public transportation. So thanks for coming. We're looking forward to your report.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Let's get that presentation up. Okay, so as the Mayor said, this is our phase 2 final presentation for the transit feasibility study. And so we can advance the slide. There we go. Okay, so a quick little recap of the project. We started with a background review. We engaged with the community, and a lot of councillors came to that engagement, which was great. We did a market and policy assessment to understand transit, the need for transit in the community. We used that to explore a variety of options, and then we've come up with a recommended solution, which we fleshed out in this phase 2 part of the study. This built on the previous work that we presented on a few months ago and refined some of those design concepts and provides more detail. But really we're trying to serve the growth of Petawawa and the opportunities that exist to keep supporting that growth long term. So the hybrid model is what we proposed at the end of the last phase, and that's what we've developed further with this phase 2 study. So you can see there it's the fixed route service, the green line running from the Garrison all the way through to Pembroke, and then that shaded sort of browny greeny area, which is the whole of town of Petawawa, being an on-demand service so that people can use transit locally and can also connect to that fixed route service to get to Pembroke and the facilities there. And zooming in on that regional route, it's proposed to stop at select stops only and provide relatively fast and direct service into Pembroke. And notably in Pembroke, the idea is that people would be able to transfer to the fixed route service locally there to access the variety of destinations in Pembroke. But this fixed route service would really just go to the college and downtown to provide a fast and sort of seamless trip to those key destinations in the centre of Pembroke. Okay, so in summary about what the service would look like, we're proposing that it would have the same hours, same level of service as the existing ORTC that runs in Pembroke. So same fare as well, which is also the same fare as your community transportation today, so $5. The service existing in Pembroke is run by a contractor, so again, for simplicity and ease of implementation, we propose that that would be the same contractor that would run this service, and that would allow it to be seamless. So same driver, same vehicle, same fare. If you're traveling either from Pembroke or from Petawawa, it's all one service and it's easy to understand, and there's no barrier to transferring. You've got the table there with the proposed hours. Again, this aligns with what already runs in Pembroke. Notably, when in the fall and winter, when school is in, the college and other activities are happening, it does run a bit later on weekdays. But in the summer, when the students aren't generally around and there's less of the other activities happening, Monday to Wednesday, it finishes a bit earlier. On-demand trips would have to be requested, and you would be able to do that, as is the case today, by app, on the website, or by calling a telephone. Okay, so how do these solutions relate to what we heard from the community? So when we spoke to the community and stakeholders, the on-demand service really tries to meet that local transportation need. Those local needs are really varied and to lots of destinations from lots of different origins. So the on-demand really serves that well because it can be very flexible. And then it provides that coverage, so basically anywhere in Petawawa can access that service. The regional route provides that regional demand. We've got a lot of people who wanted to go to Pembroke and the hospital and other services that are there. So providing that regional route does provide that accessibility that people have requested. And also provides some opportunities for reverse flow too. So people have told us they want to come to Petawawa for social things, to the beach, to the garrison, to the cinema. And so the regional route hits up a lot of those key destinations as well. And then by doing this hybrid option, bringing them both together, you get the best of both worlds. So you get local needs met, regional needs met, and a bit of flexibility too. So that on-demand allows you to sort of tailor it and see where the growth is and match that growth, rather than just having a fixed route that is much harder to change and to evolve. When we spoke to partners specifically as well, we heard a positive response from the partners, and the key partners for this proposed solution are the City of Pembroke and their contractor as well. So they've been part of this process, they're aware that Petawawa has done this study and is looking at this as the potential solution, and they've always designed the system to be able to incorporate neighbouring municipalities like Petawawa. And if you were to go down this road, you would need to formally contact them and express your interest in joining the system. But they and their contractor also believe that the service is feasible and would work well having one system for both communities. We also spoke to the garrison. Their comments were incorporated into the design, so the route does not go into the base past the gate where it is today. It serves the public part of the base, which is on their advice, but they're also happy to support the service, and discussions around potential ideas such as them maybe funding shelters and doing other things, providing a terminus for the route when it gets up to the base. They're all were supportive of doing that as well. We have also spoken to Laurentian Valley, and while they're not at a point where they're necessarily ready to make a decision, they are again aware and would be open to further conversation about the route running through their land. Okay, so a bit of further detail here in terms of how this service could be managed. As I said, the proposed approach is to partner with Pembroke and expand the existing system there. That uses their existing software, you don't procure anything, it uses their existing vehicles, and you have to grow the fleet as well, but keeping the vehicles the same, helping with spares, helping with repairs, making procuring easier. Also working with other municipalities makes you eligible for the OTIF funding, so the Ontario Transportation Investment Fund, which is really focused on integration between different municipalities. So having more than one municipality involved really makes you eligible for that provincial funding. And that funding is designed to support a new sort of service that can grow and become sustainable. And the idea is it provides sort of seed funding over a 5-year period. Pembroke has also learned some lessons in a very similar community just down the road, and so you'll be able to leverage all those learnings that they've already had and the things they've already tweaked, like their service hours in the summer and those things. And also you're sort of building this expertise in the region. We have people that already know things and know how to fix these vehicles, know how to operate these vehicles locally, and you're able to leverage that. And as I said earlier, it'll be the same experience regardless of where you travel in the area. So it's a low risk, it's good and easier for passengers, it's cheaper and faster to implement should you choose to, and so that's why it was the preferred option. So what does this look like for the town? As discussed, in partnering with the existing system, you sort of lower your financial and implementation and operational risks. You're already receiving a little bit of provincial gas tax, which you could use to support your first year cost. And then as you grow ridership, by having this system, you'll be eligible for increased gas tax due to that ridership. But there is a lag. You have to report your ridership, and then your next year's calculation is based on that. But as the system matures, you get increasing amounts of provincial gas tax to support its operation. And as I said, the OTIF funding would be something we could explore. The province just announced increasing the OTIF funding. So it's definitely something that you could apply for with both municipalities working together. So we did some calculations, which are in the report and on the slide here, giving you an idea of how the costs are probably more expensive in the first year. You've got startup costs, you've got lower ridership, lower gas tax funding. But then again, as the system matures, you get more ridership, you get greater revenue from that ridership and greater revenue from the gas tax as well. And I know if you did get OTIF funding, that is typically designed that you get more funding in the earlier years, and then the amount of funding decreases as you go on, as the system sort of starts to stand more and more on its own legs. So that could help if you're successful in mitigating some of those early year costs, those startup costs that you have to deal with. So in summary, the recommendations are to endorse the transit plan and start those formal discussions with Pembroke to set up the partnering and start to work out some of those details that would need to be worked out to actually get the service off the ground. Go through the OTIF application process, work with Pembroke and potentially Laurentian Valley to try and secure that funding. And then also continue those discussions with those key partners, some of the major employers, the garrison, the college, other community organisations that will all benefit from this service. And if you were to start it, they would be key groups that would help to spur that ridership, let their people they provide services to or work with know so that they can get on board. And that's the end of the formal presentation, but obviously open to any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Thomas. It's very interesting and a lot of, gives us a lot to think about for sure, but it seems to make a lot of sense as well, especially the partnership with Pembroke, because them having already 2 years of experience doing this project. So it's all very exciting. I'll open it up for members of council for questions. Councillor Kern.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thanks, Thomas, for the presentation. I was just wondering if you could review for me the public input component of this, in particular the attendance at the open houses and the number of respondents for the survey.
Yes, through the chair. I think I have that here. Double check with those. Otherwise, I may need to take it on notice. Yes, I don't have the exact number here, but from memory, we were quite happy with the exact volume of people. Yes, oh, here I do have it, sorry. It was 449 responses were received, so it was a really good survey turnout for a community at this time.
And the open house?
And the open house was not as well attended. We reported about 12 people came to the open house. And we figured that was because the survey response was so high. And some of the councillors and other community groups were really did a good job of getting the word out so that people had largely responded by the time we had the open house. We also had some stakeholder meetings as well, so people that may have otherwise come to the open house came to those stakeholder meetings and met several people in those group discussions as well. Thank you.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor Summer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question about a comment. I really appreciate the various costing scenarios and the various opportunities for us to look at, because we always have to be wise in spending taxpayer dollars, and we always look at a pilot of something smaller and then build on it and whatnot. So I look forward to when we discuss this and look at, I guess, the next council looking at it from a budget perspective. So thank you, Thomas, very much. Appreciate it.
Any questions? Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mayor Servitt. I just had a question about the employer partnerships. So of course, I'm looking at the price tag and I'm wondering how we can reduce that. I'm just wondering, so the fare subsidies that I saw mentioned, it's like a promotion code, that sort of thing. Do you imagine that would end up driving up ridership in the end? So, you know, I'm just wondering if this is a conservative estimate of, say, ridership. And if we went to the employer partnership group, is that would then increase ridership and then bring our bottom line down?
Yes, through the chair, the ridership forecast a little conservative because you don't want to sort of over-promise the potential of the service, and certainly any of those kind of partnerships that you can achieve will all help to grow ridership beyond that level.
Thank you.
Any questions? So I'll follow up on Councillor Coutu's question in terms of partnerships. Do you see, or have you seen in your past experiences in other municipalities where somebody like a garrison or a college, I know in the city of Ottawa, if you're a student at various school boards, they will subsidize the bus tickets for those students. Have you seen incidents where it would be somebody like a garrison Petawawa or a Algonquin college who subsidize these tickets for their employees?
Through you, yeah, the college is probably the most common example. So, but focused on students usually. So new passes are really common in larger centres, and that's basically where it's charged in the student fees, and then every student automatically gets a pass for the semester, and then that provides the transit system with a guaranteed amount of revenue every semester, and they can use that to provide a higher level of service. Students in general are great users of transit, so that's usually a really happy kind of partnership that you can achieve. In terms of staffing, yes, some post-secondary institutions do provide sort of staff passes as well. Not exactly the same as a U pass, but they recognise the sort of benefit of that and often have parking constraints on campus. And so those kind of opportunities, particularly where parking is constrained, leads larger employers to explore these kinds of options. With Garrison, I'm not aware of any military facilities that have done partnerships, although I know there are some constraints in Ottawa, so they may be exploring that, but any large employer like that, and certainly we did speak to part of phase one, CNL, and they have their own transportation issues, and so if a system were to ever go that far, I'm sure they would also be supportive of subsidising that to help resolve some of their transportation issues.
Thanks for that. And a question about the transferring between the two systems. So for example, if you get on here in Petawawa, we ride to Pembroke, and then you want to transfer and travel to different destinations in Pembroke, would your $5 fee get you everywhere you want to go? Or once you get to Pembroke, get off the bus and get on a Pembroke bus, are you paying another fee to travel on that system?
So through you, the idea is ultimately up to you to decide in implementation, but from a passenger perspective, what's standard for this kind of thing is you provide a transfer window. So say it's 90 minutes, you pay your $5, and that can get you anywhere in the system within that 90 minutes. But that said, it depends on how you want to do cost recovery. If you charge them another fare, it could be another full $5, or it could be a $2 extension or something. That can help with your cost recovery, but it will slightly depress ridership. There's that extra cost, that extra barrier. So it's a balance to be made. Again, the highest ridership would just be a single fare that is valid for a certain amount of time. But at the moment, the RTC system is just one fare, one ride, but there are also no transfers today because, yeah, you're one seat ride anyway. So it's something they haven't fully considered yet and are open to exploring, and that would be part of those formal discussions.
Thanks for that. And one final question, just in terms of the OTIP grants and the gas tax funds. In your experience, when municipalities have started systems like this, and I guess you can use Pembroke as an example, because we're all looking at the price tag, and sometimes it looks like it's getting a little high. But in terms of how some of these systems have rolled out, percentage-wise, how much would OTIP cover and how much would the gas tax cover in terms of helping the municipality cover the initial costs and the ongoing costs?
So through you, the OT funding it's ultimately up to you in your submission, how heavy you want to front load it. But some systems do go very heavy on that first year and basically have it cost almost nothing in the first year, but then you only have so much money, so you have to start ramping up a lot in the later years. So, you know, if you want to lean on that funding, if you're successful, you can maybe have half the costs in the first year and then start to receive them more, or you could go you're absorbing most of the costs in the first year, and then this is really helping extend what would otherwise be a temporary service to be a more full-time service over longer years. So you do have that latitude. The OT funding is not that specific. And then the gas tax is only it's going to cover roughly the same amount that it is based on your ridership. So it's covering around 5-10% depending on what's going on. And you do have some of that funding today, and I'm not exactly sure how you choose to apportion that funding, but you could use it against this.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I just wanted to point out with the OTIF funding, Pembroke's not eligible for that yet until they would have a partner to connect with. So if we were to partner with Pembroke, then we could put a joint application in under OTIF.
Yeah. Good to know. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, I think what I'll do, because it's a pretty long resolution we have here, so I'll let you know the resolution that we have right now as it's written, and then I'll see if anybody's comfortable with moving it forward. So the resolution is the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Petawawa endorses the hybrid transit solution as Petawawa's preferred transit plan, and that staff is directed to initiate formal discussions with the City of Pembroke, ORTC, regarding partnership opportunities, and that staff is directed to explore the Ontario Transit Investment Fund, OTIF grant, application with potential partners, and that staff is directed to continue discussions with potential partners as necessary, and that a report be brought back to Council detailing the discussions with the City of Pembroke, ORTC, and other potential partners, including grant funding opportunities, prior to Council making a final decision regarding the provision of a hybrid transit solution for the town of Petawawa. So in short, do you want to explore this further and have a more fulsome report come forward with even more details? So if anybody's comfortable with that. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Coutu. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. So that motion is denied. Defeated, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Thomas, for all the work that you put into this. That doesn't mean that we can't explore this further on a future date. There is an election coming up and there'll be a new council here in 2027. So perhaps we could bring that forward again and give it another shot. But thanks again for all the work that you put into this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, safe travels.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, next we have official plan amendment number 26, Goodsman Road. We have a delegation here to talk about that official plan amendment number 26 and requesting for reconsideration. So I'd like to welcome Jimmy Lapointe and Anthony Hommett from JBTG to bring us a report. Welcome, gentlemen. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Nice to see everyone again. For the record, my name is Anthony Homick and I am the manager of planning at JP2G. As Mr. Mayor mentioned, I'm joined by the property owner, Julie Points. And thank you very much for the opportunity to present our delegation. As you might expect, we were disappointed by the outcome on July 20th. And I had anticipated having the opportunity to present at a public meeting. So we're appreciative of the opportunity for me to make a lot of those same remarks that I would have made at a public meeting. As Melanie mentioned previously, as professional planners, we're all entitled to our opinions, but I do believe that for council to make an informed decision, it's important to hear both sides. So with that said, I'll provide a summary of the application to refresh council's memories, and I'll provide a brief rationale for why, in my professional opinion, the OPA represents good planning. Excuse me. So the OPA represents the first step in the process of allowing additional consent applications for the property municipally known as 347 Goodsman Road. The eventual consent applications would be comprised of two parts. The first part, and the driver of the entire process, is the desire to provide a lot addition to the neighboring property to the north to facilitate road access to a long-standing landlocked parcel. So the subject property at 347 Goodsman Road is a long and rectangular property. And what the lot addition would do is it would in effect more or less split the existing property in half where that lot addition would be placed. The eastern half of the property where the existing waterfront home is located would become the retained lands. And the lot addition would create a new holding on the west side of that lot addition. And we're seeking to create two lots out of that new holding. I don't want to get lost in the details of potential lot sizes, frontage, and that sort of thing with tonight's discussion, because I think that will be crystallized through the eventual consent applications. But the issue at hand for consideration is whether or not any more severances from the subject land should be permitted. There were two key issues presented to council at the previous meeting that I think I would specifically like to address. The first was that the new lots are not consistent with the provincial planning statement, and I disagree with this assessment. So importantly, the PPS does not provide any guidance to municipalities with respect to severance history policies. The PPS does promote intensification in settlement areas, but it also contemplates rural lot creation where appropriate. The PPS allows development to proceed on wells and septic systems, and if given the opportunity, we will provide the necessary study to demonstrate how these lots can be appropriately serviced with private sources. Effectively, the PPS recognizes that not all development is going to take place in towns or cities, and not within the built-up areas. Some development is always going to happen on the periphery, and there's always going to be people who want to live on a 1 acre parcel on a road like Goodsman. And there's nothing in the PPS, in my opinion, that precludes the approval of the official plan amendment. The second issue I want to address is that of precedent, and it's a cardinal rule in planning, one that's been well established by the various iterations of the Ontario Land Tribunal, that planning decisions are not based on precedent. As planners, we're taught that every application needs to be considered on its own merits. And while the approval of an application like this one could possibly encourage others to make similar applications, on each of those occasions, if they were to come to pass, the town would be able to assess each of those applications on their own merits as well. Therefore, in my opinion, the main consideration the council should be weighing is whether or not the additional severances constitute good planning. So to make that assessment, we're guided by the official plan. And I think that there's three key areas that council should consider. Those being the broad goals and objectives for the town of Petawawa, the ribbon development policies, and the severance history policies. So at the highest level, the OP is guided by a series of goals, two of which I think are particularly relevant to this application. And one of them is a bit of a mouthful, so permit me to read it in its entirety. And that goal states that it is a goal of the town of Petawawa to establish a land use pattern that ensures basic compatibility between and among the town's various land uses, and that promotes compact and energy efficient land use patterns that optimize the use of available infrastructure and public service facilities, and which utilizes densities and development standards that are cost effective, environmentally sound, and embrace public health and safety. The second one is to ensure the provision of a diverse array of housing options, including single detached homes. So the official plan amendment, if permitted, would create 2 new building lots and would provide the opportunity for the development of 3 new dwellings, which would include one on the landlocked parcel that currently is not developable without road access. The OP contains several policies aimed at limiting ribbon or strip development. And while these lots may be considered strip development, in my opinion, the impact of their approval is negligible for a variety of reasons. First of all, Gootsman Road, as you'll know, is a rather short road that extends only about 1 kilometer from the back half of the subdivision along Selly Street and Country Lane down to 347 Gootsman. And this means that the potential to create new lots along Gootsman Road is finite. And in my opinion, there's no risk of unchecked ribbon development into an untouched rural area, as there's limited land available along the road that hasn't already been developed. And most importantly, there are already 13 similarly sized lots, some of which have been created very recently, that constitute the existing land use pattern that defines Gootsman Road. These new lots, in my opinion, would simply represent a logical extension of the existing pattern of development that has been established on Gootsman Road. And lastly, coming to severance history, the official plan allows for the creation, as you've heard, of 3 new lots for holdings of less than 25 hectares. The OP does permit 3 additional severances, provided certain criteria can be met. And as I've detailed in my planning justification report, I am of the opinion that all of these additional criteria are met. The only thing we don't meet is the 25 hectare threshold for additional severances, and that's what we're seeking the amendment for. And I don't know where the number came from when it was first put into the plan, some probably 30 years ago. But in my opinion, it is a completely arbitrary number. It doesn't represent a logical metric conversion, for example, to a round acre number, as a lot of policies of this nature come from. It doesn't represent an original township lot, for example, original lot or concession lot. And in my opinion, a strict adherence to this arbitrary number does not in and of itself inform good planning. So to summarize my opinion, the approval of the proposed lots would do no more to promote strip development than the local context that already exists on Gootsman Road. The proposed lots would represent a natural and logical extension of the lotting pattern that has already been established, and these lots would be in keeping with the existing character of the road. The new lots would facilitate new homes on an existing road, and importantly, no upgrades or improvements or costs to the municipality are required to facilitate these lots. And lastly, in my opinion, a decision on the OPA should not be based on the suggestion of precedent. So we are therefore requesting that council reconsider the decision from July 20th and allow the official plan amendment to proceed to a public meeting. I would be pleased to answer any questions, but I don't want to take up any more time, as I know that Julie has some words that we'd like to say as well. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Anthony, and thanks, council, for seeing us. That was a mouthful. I'm just here to talk as a residential ratepayer and a commercial ratepayer, and I don't want to see Petawawa price ourselves out of the market with a tax situation where we're losing revenue. And to me, I'm very simplistic. We're adding 2 lots on existing street. The garbage truck goes by, the school bus, where you plow the road. So it's $5,000 to $6,000 a lot that you're going to be getting in perpetuity. We're not cutting a bunch of trees down. And aesthetically, it cleans up the street. When it was turned down, it's not even so much as where this is going, but I think anybody that comes before you should have the opportunity to go to a public meeting and put it before the public. There's a lot of land in Petawawa, bigger parcels, and I don't know that these severance rules, like I think every one of these things should be based on an individual assessment. And it's like everything else, people have different opinions. We have 2 different opinions in the room. I'm paying for this planner, and I'm also actually paying for Melanie as a taxpayer. So, and I'm just trying to do what's right here. And what prompted me to revisit this with Ian after the last decision was I was looking into the appeal process, and we had to get a hold of the town to get, what is that letter? The letter that said, why, I guess you turned it down.
Yeah.
within the 20 days. So I was anxious to get that. Maybe it was divine intervention or what, but it's got to come again because of something with the procedure. So I'm just here to plead with you. I see all your t-shirts with dynamic in nature. That only means $1.95 if the township's going to go vote with high taxes. And there is that gap, I think, that used to exist between Pembroke and Petawawa as taxes is shrinking. So that the more buildings we can build here in the town of Petawawa is better for everybody else. And it does, I agree with what Anthony said in the fact that not everyone wants to live in a subdivision and not everybody wants to live in an apartment. So there's a lot of beautiful streets in Petawawa that have larger lots. I'm just trying to extend the street. And you may well get, you may kick me ass for saying this, you may well get inundated with people that want to get severances. Well, we're not Russia or Trump's not running this country. We can turn around and listen to somebody, and it may not fit that cookie cutter, but I think it draws a better need for consideration and allowing to go with that next step. With that, I'll say thank you. Hope common sense prevails. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll open it up to members of council for questions. Councilor Coutu.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thank you very much for sharing that. I guess I just have maybe one, maybe two questions. Talking about, again, how we're supposed to make our decisions, voting the official plan, 2 points stuck out for me, environmentally sound and public health. Do you have any response to the concerns that were raised about the quality of the well, the new technology and the septic not being up to snuff? Do you have any comments about that? Because for me, that was fairly persuasive when we're talking about adding more wells. What's that going to do to the existing wells? Will there be a drop in quality? Will there be any other adverse public health issues? Those are the things that give me pause too. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, this actually has only come to light very recently. This is actually the first through at that July 20th meeting. That's the first time hearing of the suggestions that the technology isn't working as it's intended to. We've been relying on this technology in a lot of municipalities throughout Renfrew County. And so yeah, it comes as a bit of a surprise to hear that it's not working, or there's a suggestion that it's not working. As it relates to proving out that it is working, we rely on the manufacturer's specifications and all of the extensive testing that they've done. And we would, in order to ultimately move through the consent process, we would be doing a hydrogeological assessment, a terrain analysis to demonstrate that these lots could be built appropriately and would not impact neighboring well owners.
You have a follow-up? Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Actually does bring me to the next question I have, because I was reading there's a long list of studies that would be required here. So this is a significant with one. There'd be an environmental study required. It's in the floodplain. An archaeological study would be required. And then of course the hydrological and all the rest. So I'm just wondering, is the juice worth the squeeze, but also are we building somewhere that we shouldn't be building? And here's the evidence. And then winding back a bit, bringing that to ribbon development. I understand conceptually why we don't want to be extending forever the town, right? We can waste tax dollars by doing that. As much as we do want to increase our tax base, we want to do it in a way that's not then, costing us down the road. And I'm really interested in not putting the burden on future generations. And I think we understand that eventually we want to extend sewer. We want to make more areas closer to the settlement area connected to municipal services. So my concern with less precedent, but more sprawl, creating a sprawl situation, cutting into a woodland, building too close to the river. So just if there's any comment you can make to that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for all those comments through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd say we're early days. As I suggested, the OPA is just the first step that allows us to do all these studies. I think we are confident that the studies would bear out that these lots are buildable and that the juice is worth the squeeze, to use your words. Just want to point out that the lots would actually be in the flood fringe not the floodplain, so they're in the flood fringe, which is buildable. You end up having to fill. I don't know if you've been down to take a look at the house that's under construction or just nearing completion. That's just west of the property, and you can see that there's been, the lot has had to be raised a little bit in order to meet a certain elevation to stay above the what's required by the official plan in terms of floodproofing, it's called. So we would have a topographic survey completed to demonstrate where that elevation is to make sure that everything is completely above board with respect to human health and safety. From flooding, obviously. We would have an environmental impact study completed by a biologist to speak to any of the long-term impacts on the woodlands. I think that's most of what I could answer to that one, but yeah, I think, as I said, I think we're confident that that all the studies will bear out that these lots are going to be buildable. And maybe with respect to just the sprawl comment, I think as I mentioned, and as Jimmy mentioned, these lots are right beside other lots that exist. We're not talking about any real sprawl on Houston Road. There's a finite stretch here on Houston Road. As Jimmy said, the garbage truck goes down, the school bus goes down there, the plow goes down there. It's not adding any sprawl to this part of town.
Can I just make Can I just make a comment to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay, I go through you and then I make, okay. Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment? Yes? Okay. So I'm involved doing another subdivision in Pembroke, and believe me, Lisa, all this stuff we have to go through. I've got 9 different species of bats living in a piece of property, and bats that I didn't even know existed, but we have to move them at different times of the year because they mate at different times of the year. So you can't cut the trees down. So all of this stuff, and I'm not trying to be humorous, there's not much juice left after this all gets squeezed. This is, aesthetically, I believe in improving the street. I'm trying to fix my neighbor's issue being landlocked, and it's more revenue because there's not that many of us left that are running around and doing this at agent stage in terms of developing this land, because it's not what I always thought it was, but I ended up with the property, so now I'm going to continue and hopefully retire doing this. But these guys have to, it's their name that gets signed to everything in terms of these studies that need to be done. And I don't want to be involved. I'm living at the end of the street. I don't want people having bad water. You sell a guy a bad car, you live with him for 7 years. You sell a guy a house and got bad water, or how long we've done it. So it has to be. It's all done, it's going to be done and done properly, and I'm not running away, and I'm local, so it's not these projects. That's all.
Okay, next, and I'll just follow up on Councilor Two question for a second about all the different studies that need to be done. But there was 3 lots severed already, and there's 2 fully completed homes and 1 under construction. All of those studies were obviously done on those 3 lots, and I'll say passed the study.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know that there was a hydrogeological assessment completed that was positive, that obviously allowed those lots to go forward. I don't know off the top of my head if there was a significant woodland study, an EIS required. And I don't believe there should have been an archaeological study as well, being that close to the river, but I could be wrong. The only one I know for a fact that speaks to some of the other discussions we've already had is that there was a hydrogeological assessment done that concluded that those 3 lots were appropriate at the 1 acre, and those were supported with a conventional septic system.
And I'll just follow up with one more. What would cause a significant woodland study to kick in, especially because I've looked at these lots and there's only a couple of trees on each one. So who decides, or what point do you need to get to for this significant woodland study to be implemented?
So I think we may actually have confounded the woodland and the wetlands because this is fairly low lying. So the official plan would have, or has a schedule that identifies the environmentally sensitive areas, and those are significant woodlands and wetlands primarily. And so if a portion of the property or the property lies within that layer that's shown on the schedule of the official plan, then you're required to do an environmental impact study.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Spencer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for your words. I guess there's two things here. One, you spoke about your perspective and your rationale and whatnot. And what I'm used to seeing is a report as such that I can read, I can digest, I can take those points into consideration. So I think if we were to have to make a decision tonight, I wouldn't be prepared to support it because I would like to take it away and I would like to digest it. I guess the second question, yeah, it's right there. I see that. Fabulous, thank you. But the other question I have is probably for Melanie. You know, last meeting we talked about looking at our official plan and bringing it back to discuss at that time and point. And I'm just wondering if there is an opportunity for us to, and I'm not saying tonight, and I'm not saying this week, I'm not saying this month, to bring this before as something that we examine. And should we do the appropriate research? Should we take a look at what this means in terms of, because for me, there are a number of people we've turned down in the past, significant numbers of people we've turned down in the past for this very same type of thing. And everybody has a very compelling reason and very good rationale. We have used the maximum lots as one of our benchmarks. I'm not talking urban development. That's where I drew the line at the meeting of July the 20th. So I guess, Melanie, sorry to keep looking at you. I don't know if you can speak to, is that something that the county would be open to sort of taking a look before? Is it practical? Is it impractical? Is it a hard no? I don't know the answers to these questions, but there are some questions that I have. Adam had brought that up, and I think it, could potentially make sense. However, it was 1987 is our moment in time, and I'm still comfortable with that at this time. Thank you.
In terms of Melanie and any answers to any of the questions, Melanie will be coming to us later with a report.
Oh.
She can address those questions at that time.
Thanks.
Ethan, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The report was submitted with the application, so it is with or should be with everybody, I assume. So you can certainly read all of my but much more detailed analysis. I certainly didn't want to get overwhelmed in this discussion, and we're really just focused on trying to get to that public meeting, move forward. As it relates to examining that severance history date, the 1987 date that Councillor Driscoll brought up last time, I think Melanie answered that quite correctly last meeting, that the time to do that is when you're updating your official plan, which obviously the town just did. But certainly wasn't top of mind at the time when you were doing that official plan amendment. So you could look at doing that anytime, really. Most municipalities would do that when they're updating their official plan. And maybe if I could just touch on the comment about turning people down on the maximum number of lots. I certainly see that, and I encounter that frequently elsewhere. And I have had that answer given in town of Petawawa before. But I think a lot of those cases, we're told by a planning authority somewhere that, no, that's our maximum number of lots, please go away. But I don't think all that many people are interested in doing the level of study and the extra work that's required in doing an official plan amendment to try to move that forward. A lot of people do take the suggestion that there's been too many severances already, and that's kind of it. They go away. But I don't think everybody, as Mr. Point is willing to do, is invest in that official plan amendment, doing all of those supporting studies to justify why we think this is appropriate. So that's the comments I thought I would make on that. Thank you.
Councillor Kerman.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thanks for the presentation. So I've always been of the opinion that if the rules don't suit your purposes, then seek to change the rule rather than be exempt from them, which is where the official plan comes in, which is what Deputy Mayor was discussing. And that way the rules are applied equally to everybody in the future, and applied equally to everybody looking back as well. And for an example, I can think of a couple of years ago, 12, 14 years ago, an individual came to council and a very similar situation, and was a couple of hectares short to get 5 severances on his property. And made a case to have the official plan changed so that the number of hectares required was dropped in the official plan to the exact number of hectares that he owned. And that amazingly made it through council. But that's just an example of how the rules can be changed, and therefore it applies equally to everybody going forward. And I vote against that, by the way.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with, like you just said, the rules can be changed, and sometimes it takes certain individuals that can bring forward a reason for the change, because if people just get turned down all the time, it's just, no, okay, and then they just go away, then the change will never happen. But for an instance like this, I mean, I understand the ribbon development idea, like these things are not what we want. The Gooseman Road is a dead end road that is already developed down one whole side of the road. Adding 2 more houses down there is not going to change the landscape of a dead end road that's already serviced by us. It is going to create more tax revenue, and this could be the thing that does spur our time to look at our official plan and make an amendment and actually make a change on it, because if not, in 4 years' time, when it comes back up, this could have all been gone by the wayside, and in 6 years, we'll be back to something similar to this. That's going to be someone looking for a severance, and it's like, we have to go through the whole process again. So maybe we could use this as that catalyst for the change of the official plan amendment.
Further questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you very much for bringing that report forward to us. And as we mentioned earlier, our planner is bringing forward a report on this very matter later in this evening's meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll go to bylaws. First up, we have bylaw 1846/26, being a bylaw to appoint a closed meeting investigator. I need a motion for a first and second reading. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that bylaw 1846/26, being a bylaw to appoint a closed meeting investigator, be read a first and second time. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.
Corporation of the Town of Petawawa, bylaw 1846/26, being a bylaw to appoint a closed meeting investigator, be read a first and second time this 10th day of August, 2026.
I need a motion for third and final reading of bylaw 1846/26. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that bylaw 1846/26 be read a third and final time and pass. Any questions, concerns on the bylaw? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next we have, it's getting too fast.
Corporation of the Town of Petawawa, a bylaw 1846/26, being a bylaw to appoint a closed meeting investigator, be read a third time and pass. This constitutes third and final reading of bylaw 1846/26, this 10th day of August, 2026.
Okay, next we have correspondence. This correspondence was a special occasion permit for September 19th, 2026 for a Taste of the Valley event from Melissa Marquardt, Manager of Economic Development for the County of Brantford. Very exciting to see this coming back to Petawawa. I wait every 2 years for the Taste of the Valley to come back. If you've had a chance to check it out either here or in the other communities that offer it, it's quite something with so many vendors and a lot of good food. So it's great to see it back in Petawawa. I keep advocating every year. I tell them we'll host it every year, and we'll take anybody's place that won't have it. So it's great to see it coming back. We'll receive that one as information. Next, we have some minutes. Council and committee meeting for July 20th, 2026. I need a motion to accept those minutes. Moved by Councillor Coutu, second by Councillor Donovan, that the minutes of the council and committee meeting held on July 20th, 2026 be accepted by council, and that resolutions from that committee become resolutions of council. Any questions, concerns on the minutes? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, that brings us to staff reports. First up, we have PL-18-2026, Official Plan Amendment 26, OPA 26, part of Lot 11, Lake Range, 347 Goodsman Road. Melanie, the floor is yours.
All right, good evening. So on the recommendation of staff, council refused official plan amendment 26 at the special council meeting of July 20th without hosting a public meeting in accordance with section 22, subsection 3 of the Planning Act. And that resolution was attached to the report. When we were preparing the notice of refusal, we noticed that there was an administrative step that had been missed passing that resolution. So the purpose of this report is to address that misstep, and the purpose of this report was not to reopen the discussion on the merits of the amendment. So as I mentioned, staff is required to circulate the notice of refusal following council's decision, and the notice of refusal has to include an explanation of council's refusal, and also the effect, if any, the written or oral submissions had on the decision. What the July 20th, 2026 report did not include was that we had received 2 written responses from public agencies, being the Renfrew County Joint Transportation Consortium and Enbridge Gas. Both had no comments, but we should have included that in that July 20th report so that you are aware of those before your decision was made. So that is the purpose of this report. We also received no comments submission from Hydro One after the July 20th report, so we included that in this report as well. So that was the purpose of this report, was making you aware that those written submissions had come in, and that is why our recommendation is to rescind that July 20th resolution recommending refusal, and for calling for a new resolution recommending refusal with required information before you. A draft of the notice of refusal is also attached to the report, and you will see it includes the reasons for the decision, and we would issue that notice to initiate the 20-day appeal period.
Thanks, Melanie. Questions, comments from the members of council? Deputy Mayor Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to those points, nothing has changed in terms of the information that we had originally received. So I guess I'll ask you now that you're sitting in this chair, Melanie, with respect to if we did decide, if we did issue this refusal to amend, could we then, and what would be the process, and I guess also, would there be a cost, all of those kind of things for us to look at, and what might that cost be for us to look at going back to the official plan and looking at this item, certainly with respect to the provincial policy and the provincial government, build more homes faster, and some of the initiatives that we're seeing, I think sometimes things, as we've discussed, have reached their end of life, and so we might need to look at a review at that point. It doesn't change the facts for me as they sit here today, but just wondering what your thoughts are on something like that or your experience.
Yeah, as we discussed at the July 20th meeting, changing the policy happens when we look at updating or doing our 5-year review of the official plan. So we have a new official plan that was just adopted in 2024. So generally those policy changes will come up at the next review. So we're a few years out from that. We are looking, as we look to update the zoning bylaw amendment, at looking at a number of policies in the official plan that aren't quite working, I think, the way I intended. So we are looking at an official plan amendment to capture some of these things. We could add this to the list if council so chose. Councillor Carmody recommended or mentioned earlier that previously the policy was changed. That was when the official plan was reviewed in 2012. And the threshold for additional severances was 40 hectares. Prior to that, a member of the public brought forward requesting more severances. Staff recommended keeping the 40 hectare threshold. Council reduced it to 25. So exactly what Councillor Carmody said, that's kind of the time to do the, have the fulsome discussion, give us time to do the research. And in that case, council went against staff's recommendation and reduced the threshold, so. And during the July 20th meeting, there's questions about where the 1987 date came from. That is the date that the township of Petawawa's official plan was adopted. So it was as of that date going forward for 7. So that was a question from the last meeting as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, ma'am.
No, go ahead. Follow up, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is something that we could potentially add to the list of other things, should we, as a council, decide that that would be appropriate and provide direction. I think what I'm hearing from you.
It is. I just have no timing for this. Are we going to do an official plan amendment? Are we going to update our official plan again? Because of all the changes in provincial legislation, this is a discussion that I'm waiting to have with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just for clarification, following up on Deputy Mayor Sadman's questioning, because the province has been rolling out a lot of changes to the various acts and everything, and it has made us, make subtle changes to our official plan, and there's more changes coming, as we know. Can we, I guess, change on the fly is what I'm asking. And I think that's what I heard is correct. You can make changes on the fly. You don't have to wait for the 5-year review to make official changes.
That's correct.
Councillor Kerman.
That was my question.
It's been answered.
If I could add though, the county would have to approve the change. So it's not just that town council can decide there's a change. The county is the approval authority. So I did try and get the county's thoughts on this amendment, but until it's before them, they would not provide comment.
Further questions or comments on the amendment? Okay, so what we first have to decide to do is rescind the resolution number 7 that was made on July the 20th because it was made with incomplete information. So that has to be rescinded first before we can go to the next step. So first I need a motion to, and I'll read it to you just so you know, that council rescinds resolution number 7 adopted at the July 20th, 2026 special meeting of council. So if you're comfortable with that, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Councillor Donovan, the council rescinds resolution number 7 adopted at the July 20th, 2026 special meeting of council. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, so next we have a bit of a choice here, and I'll read both of the options for the resolutions. First option is that council refuses to adopt official plan amendment 26 on the basis that the proposed amendment is not consistent with the provincial planning statement and does not conform to the general purpose and intent of the town's official plan, as described in staff report PL-17-2026. Our second option is that council directs staff to schedule a public meeting to further consider the application for official plan amendment 26. Having given you both those options, are there any questions, comments, or concerns that need to be raised? Okay. Do I ask for a motion on the first one first?
Ask if somebody wants to put it.
Okay, would anybody like to put either of these motions on the floor? Deputy Mayor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the discussions and given where we are and the official plan, I would like to put recommendation number 1.
So it's moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Carmody. That council refuses to adopt official plan amendment 26 on the basis that the proposed amendment is not consistent with the provincial planning statement and does not conform to the general purpose and intent of the town's official plan as described in staff report PL-17-2026. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. All right. Next, we're on to FIN-07-2026. the Q2 2026 quarterly report. Megan, it's your report.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Okay, I feel like I was just here with Q1, but we're back to Q2. And again, this report is to provide council with information on the year to date to the end of June 2026. With an overview of the operations of the organization, focusing less on the day-to-day operations and controls, and putting the emphasis on the strategy so that council can see that we're in line with budget and that the strategic goals of the council in this township are being met. So as you can see in the report on attachment 1, that we're currently underspent for, say, half the year. We're only about 43.5% excluding capital projects. So in terms of operational costs, we're much lower. In terms of the capital projects, it obviously looks quite low, and that's because still in Q2, not many of the projects lifted off the ground or were completed. Obviously in Q3, we'll see a giant shift in that number, as we have, you can see around town, we have our new letter sign and the Norman Banky access road that has been completed. And again, the Norman Banky was completed with the CCBF funds. So in looking at the statement of operations, you see that the CCBF up to the end of Q2 we still have $0 because we only get to recognize that revenue when we have the expenses against it. So in Q3, council will see that changed. In terms of the variances on the revenue side, PILT was not fully billed by the end of Q2. It was billed in early Q3, the very first week of July, so we just missed the cutoff for this. But everything else is very much in line with the budgeted numbers. Again, for development charges, those will only be recognized when we use the projects that the council agreed to fund through the development charges. So as those are completed, that number will change there. In terms of the expenses, the salary line is a little bit lower than the 50%, and that's really because we have a lot of staff that come in the summer months to run all of the summer programming there. And some of the donations and grants, again, are just timing. Some of these things are one-off, so heavy in Q1 or heavy in Q4. But we are very much on track in comparison to the budget. And as I say, capital is very low, but that's only timing of the actual projects when shovels hit the ground. In terms of the revenue for the water and sewer, again, it's low in comparison to where you would expect it to be because the PILT billing has not been reflected in these numbers. And some of the investment income that we get for the sewer, you don't recognize that until Q4. Again, timing. But in terms of expenses, very much on par for salaries and materials in the water and sewer budgets. And in terms of vendors that we pay over $100,000 to in Q2, very much the same as in Q1. This is there with 14, and all of those are in line with the budget as is reflected in the previous table. So, if there are any questions, I have to answer these.
Questions on the report? Deputy Mayor Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Megan, for this report. It took me 7 seconds. Is it yours, Mr. Mayor?
Turn your volume, Megan.
Somebody was messing with my chair and the volume on my microphone.
And your porridge.
And exactly. Now I'm just got it. No. So Megan, thank you again. It took me a second to figure this out, but I appreciate the headings and I appreciate the high level data there. What's missing for me is the low level detail about bills we're paying, about the how we're spending our taxpayer dollars, and the, what do we call that, the list of checks, list of payments, all of those things that we had asked for, I guess, some 5 or 6 months ago. And I thought it was direction to staff, or I thought it was going to happen, and then I was told it was going to happen, and it still hasn't happened. So that's still missing for me, and it's a very much an important part of the fiduciary responsibility to look at the dollars and cents, and a very transparent way for our public to see how our money is being spent. I know over the years I've used that kind of information to determine, you know, for my own self, where we're buying local, where we're shopping Petawawa, where we're buying local, what we're sort of spending our dollars and cents on, and to be able to also answer questions that ratepayers have. And this is really high level, which is probably quite, you know, good for us for the most part. I think that low level part is still missing, and I don't know if council has to have the discussion, or if that is just something that will be able to occur and sort of back to the last, because I think we received one and then we haven't received any follow-ups since then. So I can't remember what that's called, but I think it's the list of checks, and understanding I'm not looking for confidential information. That is none of my business. But you know, who we're paying money to, what we're paying for, that kind of thing, I think is important for us to know, and for the people who fund all of our projects to know as well.
No,
Yeah, go ahead.
you're red, so. Yeah, so since I have been the treasurer, I have not brought that report forward. It was recommended a couple of years ago by the auditor, due solely because there were a lack of change in this role and a lack of kind of direction or controls that were not necessarily in place, or the auditors felt that weren't in place, as was noted in the management letter. That is no longer the case, and that the only reason that was brought forward to council, it was recommended to bring forward by the auditor, was because there was a lack of oversight. Since I have now stepped into the role and the oversight is there, the auditor has recommended that would be in agreement with me that that's not necessarily something that would be necessary for council to see, as it was a detective control with what they were bringing it back, the reason that they were bringing it back for. I don't know of any other municipality in Ontario that currently has a list of the checks that they just provide. I mean, obviously, they're more than welcome to try some them, but as you say, there's lots of sensitive or potential sensitive information. We have policies that we follow in our purchasing policy, which will also come back up later this year in front of council, but it needs to be updated because of changes to the rules of where we can buy, which is far more focused on local than it has been in the past. And for all of those reasons, the controls that we do have, the policies and procedures that we also need to stay in line with, I don't believe that that's something that we need to bring forward. But I do understand the transparency for buying local and trying to support local businesses, which I think we try really hard to do as town staff, just inherently. And obviously staying in budget and comparing how we're doing relative to the budget is a far more useful tool to make sure that as staff, collectively, we are keeping in line with the direction that the council has provided in the way necessary.
Follow-up, Deputy Mayor?
Thanks. I hear that you're, I think I hear that you're quite fine with this. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not, and I'm interested to hear what other council members might have to say. Since I've been sitting around the table, almost 20 years, we've always had that check thing, and it's not just because somebody was, you know, we needed tighter controls. It was just always the way it was, and I became very comfortable with that, and I really like it. I think it's extraordinarily transparent, right down to everything we send out, and that's what I would have seen. I want to see if other council members feel the same way. Thank you.
Councillor Kern.
Thank you, Mayor Service. I agree 110% with the Deputy Mayor. The checks, the list of checks is the raw data. It doesn't lie. And You know, as much as I like to go through those list of checks and, see how much we paid Murray to run the disco at New Year's or whatever. There's a far greater and more important reason to list those checks. And it's public accountability and oversight of council. Because I can think of an instance a couple of years ago, not that long ago, where we had a bit of an issue with the sand dome, which was constructed a little too tall, and it needed to be reworked. And it was a bit of an embarrassing situation, and there were members of the public who used that list of checks that were distributed in agendas to hold us to account and to say, hey, how much did that mistake cost? What did that cost the taxpayers of the town of Petawawa? They used the general ledger numbers to figure out how much we had spent to fix that mistake. And that was not something that, council discussed or anything. That was their own detective work that they used to hold our feet to the fire. So it's important for many reasons, and I'd like to see it.
CA.
Thank you, Mayor Sturvis, through you and Councilor Carmen's comment. This afternoon, we did have some discussions, the director, myself, and our auditor who was here this afternoon. We have come to the conclusion that if we did bring the report back, which 100% I have no problem with, and I think I can concur that we can do that. The one question we did have is there has been some recent changes from a few years back when the previous treasurer had brought this report forward. With confidentiality, there's been a few changes with the PIPA and the release of personal information. So on some of the explanation points, we may need to make changes to that, or frankly, what I suggest is we just remove the full explanation column. You'll have a check number, you'll have an amount, and you'll have the payee. And should there be any questions from council in the agenda package, they can address those through myself, and we'll get the answer to council on what that check was for. And we can send that information to all council prior to the agenda meeting if that is the way we'd like to proceed.
Thank you, Councilor Coutu.
Thank you, Mayor Service. I'm going to change my comment, and I'm just going to thank Councilor Connery for that story. And I think I can appreciate how the public would be interested in having some of the more granular details. I'll say for my part, I really appreciate this report. I find that it really gives me the information I'm interested in, the aggregates, like you said, where are we going as far as targets or priorities. I love this. I hadn't really considered the fact that members of the public might sit there and might actually pour through those lists of checks, and that would inform potentially some of the issues and questions and comments they bring to council. So I am going to change my mind a bit, although I do appreciate that it's going to take staff time. I realize this is to sanitize that information, to redact what's not relevant, etc. It's going to take staff time, but I think I really do appreciate Councillor Carney's comments, and I can support adding that transparency at the cost of staff time, unfortunately.
Councilor Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also myself, I would like to see the checks identified. I think it's just good housekeeping. Thank you.
Councilor Disco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll round it out. I agree. Government transparency is extremely important, and there is nothing more transparent than showing exactly where we're spending every dollar. So I like it.
Further questions or comments? Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we're going to give direction to staff to bring back the, how often? Monthly list of checks with the, we'll call it the detail column, redacted, to ensure that we aren't disclosing any personal information. But everything else on that listing of checks will appear as it has in the past. Sure. Deputy Mayor Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I just ask a clarity question when you say that information redacted? So for example, as a member of council, I have an expense allowance, and if I choose to spend my expense allowance to cover my cell phone, are you saying that that won't be identified there? Because I think that would be important, but if it's other types of personal information, so I don't know, I'm looking at describing a firefighter physical, for example. I think we need to know that. We just, that I think is clear, but I think other information, so if we're paying a bill to JP2G or we're paying a bill to Splinter or whatever, that part will be redacted. I just want to make sure I'm clear, please.
Sorry, can I?
Go ahead, Megan.
Sorry about that. So to your point, what we were envisioning was no details whatsoever, check number, an amount, and who it's to. Those checks are not necessarily just one invoice. The many checks, I mean, the ones that are listed, we're paying multiple invoices with, let's just say like a Rona, for example. I know it's not always the case, but we're paying many invoices with that one. The previous check report that were provided didn't line up. It doesn't line up at all. So just the way the system prints it out, it splits things differently because we send it to many different GLs. So no, there would be, what we are proposing is that there would be no details. We're just, here's the check number, who it is to, and here's the amount.
So I think in past years, the listing of checks would say Rona, it would say how much, but on our listing of checks, it wouldn't say roll of tape, lumber. You wouldn't get that type of information in the listing of checks. And I don't think that's what any of us are looking for because we've never had that before. It has never said Rona and then listed 30 items that was purchased with that check at Rona. Is that what you're suggesting? Yeah, okay, CAO.
But in the past, it may have said cell phone beside expense account, or it may have said medical. In the past, I can guarantee you, if I were to pull up reports, in the past, it may have said medical and it may have listed an employee's name. Or it may have said a return to work and we asked for a medical certificate and it may have said the employee's name. And that's the information that if council wants, my suggestion is we just take the whole explanation column, because it would be a lot easier for staff, and don't report on it. But if a member of this council wants the details of that information, I can get it for you and give that to you. I just don't, it's a lot easier to just take the whole column and not have staff go through it and blacken out or take out that MPIPA information that we can't put out to the public. So I just think it's a trade. I'm trying to, I guess, find common ground where I can get you the list back. But if you want the detail, I can get it to you, but it's going to have to be in a separate correspondence there if you show desire what that is. That just makes it easier, I think, in my opinion, for all staff. But if you want us to go through and take out the information and leave the explanation on other ones, then it's going to be a little bit more of a project, that's all.
Okay, so I think what I hear you saying is that the monthly listing of checks that would appear in the finance department's report, that would appear in the council agenda that goes out to the public, would have that column not showing at all. But if members of council would like the listing of checks with that column that may have some MPIPA information, that could be distributed to council alone. Is that what you're saying? How does council feel about that? Councilor Cruz?
My service, I think I know the answer to this question. I'm just wondering, so a member of the public sees check, they have a follow-up question, they can just reach out like they can for any item on the agenda and find out. And then if that's, private information, they'll get that notice. But if it's something that can be shared, it will be, I'm not assuming.
Deputy Mayor? That is correct. Deputy Mayor Simon.
Okay, so just to be clear, so if when we come to a public meeting and we have the list of checks, and I say, for example, check number 652973668, I cannot look it down. If I ask for that and say, could you give me more information as to what that check is about? Will you have that information? I guess is what I'm asking, right? So I just
as long as you're not asking at the meeting, then yes, I can definitely get that information for you. It's absolutely available in the finance software, and I'm happy to share it with whomever requests it. It's just the finance software we have, the way that it reports, it would take hours to truly clean it and make it be not necessarily a palatable something, but to make sure that we're not violating anyone's HIPAA rights, and that the information that would then be presented is actually useful to you. Because like I say, it's going to show, say I have one check, I'm gonna have 30 things for Rona. I'm certain you don't need to see how many times we've done paid. For what project it isn't, may not say. So yes, I'm happy to bring that, just please ask.
No, that's perfect. Let's give it a try. I'm game to give it a try and see how it works. Thank you.
Councilor Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think as well, just to highlight the point as well, that there are steps, checks and balances that are done with the checks that are produced. So they may arise from our staff, they're reviewed by councils from our mayor prior to the signing of the checks as well. So I'm comfortable with the 3-column printout with the data in it, and if there's any further questions, we can ask them here.
Yes, agreed.
You'd be seriously testing my memory capacity. Okay, so I'll restate that. So what we're seeking is staff direction on the monthly list of checks to appear at the finance department's monthly report with just the 3 columns, the check number, the payee, and the amount. If any further information is required, we can inquire with the finance department before, after, but not during the meeting. It's a little hard to find that information. Did I hit it there?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, we're good. So I need a motion to receive the finance report as information. Moved by Councilor Carmody, second by Deputy Mayor Sauer, that council receives this report as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have FIN-08-2026, a report on CBA correspondence. Megan.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Further to the last meeting when correspondence on the possible change to the CBA apportionment was presented to council, council directed staff to just gauge some idea of what this would mean if council was to endorse this, what it would mean for the town of Petawawa. And as the report, the table there kind of indicates, it really depends on what kind of apportionment the province would possibly do. It may benefit taxpayers or per household, but we may bear the brunt because we are a very large municipality in this county. Now, this information is also solely based on households. It doesn't factor into things like we have commercial and industrial and other municipalities who have the same. This is just kind of to compare as best as I can with apples to apples, but it really would vary as to what the province would possibly come up with for enforcement change as to how that would shake out. But we're not talking rules of money in one way or the other in terms of if we shifted based on what the report from the Township of Calvin had presented in their ask. So, happy to answer any questions if I can.
Questions on the report? Councilor Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think when the original interest in this came up, when the request had come to council, we mentioned that we wanted to look at it from the scope of fairness, right? That we wanted to make sure. And for me, that trickled down into other scenarios where we've looked at funding properties and how they're distributed throughout the county, where we seem to be far less than everyone else in terms of what we receive. So I just want to put that into council's mind that although this one may look like it will cost us a bit more to be fair and equal, there may be trickle-down effects where some other funding that is coming down that we see distributed to the county and with our numbers very low, where we're shaking our heads as to why we did not receive them. So it's just to kind of pass that comment along.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So at this point, we're just receiving this as information. We're not making a decision on whether we can support this or not. So I need a motion to accept this as information. Moved by Councilor Root, seconded by Councilor Donovan, that council receives this report as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, Megan. Next, we have councillor reports. We're going to start with a special one from the Pembroke and Area Airport 2026 Q2 snapshot. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second time this has been, the snapshot's been brought to council. People around the table is always asking, and residents, what's going on at the airport and what's new. And so this is a real good snapshot. Like I said, it's the second one. And if council has any other ideas that they'd like to see or that I put on this, I'd be more than glad to take that back and have that information sourced out. But again, I just want to bring it to our residents. The airport does operate, a lot of people don't understand this, but it's 24/7, 365 days a year that the airport is open and serving the community. All sorts of business economics and business people and just people flying into visit our town as well. Some highlights of Q2, they again did more Quebec dam patrols, the Ontario duck survey, M&R fish stocking, of course fire crews. We know all about the fires that are happening locally and abroad. The Canadian Coast Guard was in as well, and then Quebec was there for search and rescue. Q2 in numbers, 947 aircraft movements. That's quite a bit for our local airport. The numbers are up substantial. Charter flights, 124. Civilian flights, 348. Military D&D, 441. The M&R, we were 24. Medevac, 10. Communities served, 18, of course, with all the Renfrew County municipalities. So yeah, just lots of good things happening, and if anyone wants to see anything else on these quarter shots, I want to continue to keep this information going out and making people aware that it's our airport. If anything you want to know about it, please send it off to me now. Make sure that we get it included on the next Q3. But things are very busy. It's something that's not on here either is maybe a lot of residents are driving by and you see that Hydro One is on the property. They are storing some of their equipment and poles and copper wires, power lines as they're doing the retrofit of relocating hydro lines here in their area. So again, they have this lease on our property, and because what makes it very good, it's secured and it's in a very good location, and we're glad to provide that service for the hydro and their residents. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thanks for the report, Councillor. This is excellent information. And the only thing that, the only additional information that I would find useful is the total number of flights. How many fixed wing versus rotor, which is always an interesting stat.
Absolutely, Councillor. I will make sure we get that information. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the report? Okay, thank you, Councillor Roots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The next piece of information is something that came from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM. It's a new program they have called From the Ground, which is all about turning municipal land into non-market housing, something that we have already discussed here in the town of Petawawa. We have some ongoing negotiations with a non-profit entity in terms of potentially offering some affordable housing here in the town of Petawawa. So what FCM is proposing is this From the Ground. It's a national mayor-driven movement led by FCM, and it's all about municipalities identifying publicly owned land or underused land, and then to take that land and use it for non-market housing or affordable housing. So what FCM is asking, or what they're hoping will happen, is that various municipalities all across this country will start to participate in this From the Ground program and basically make a resolution that not right now, and it doesn't even have a date, but at some point this municipality will consider joining the From the Ground movement and potentially turn some municipal land into non-market housing. So there's quite a lengthy resolution here. I don't think I'll read, but it's basically saying that the town of Petawawa will make a commitment to investigate the possibility of turning some land into non-market or affordable housing. I guess what I can read are the directions to staff, because that is, I guess, the most pertinent part of the resolution here. So I'll read the bullets and not all the whereases that come before this. But the bullets are endorses participation in the From the Ground initiative led by FCM, commits to the provision of at least one parcel of municipal land for non-market housing, direct staff to identify a parcel of municipally owned land that may be suitable for non-market housing. Now they've got a date here. It said brings back to council for approval before September 30th, 2026, which is not feasible. So as part of this resolution, we would take that date out. Direct staff to submit the parcel of land to FCM's From the Ground, and again, it's got a drop dead date, which is certainly not feasible. Request that staff reports back to council as appropriate on participation in the initiative, potential opportunities identified, and any recommendations for future action. And then directs the clerk to forward a copy of this resolution to FCM, MPP to know, Roma, and Renfrew County municipalities for information and consideration. Are there any comments, questions from Councillor Kerner?
Thank you, Mayor Service. I think that given the fact that we're already involved in the process of considering this, that I just don't see what the benefit of this resolution would be, and actually the whole thing doesn't rest very well with me anyway. SCM's not in the business of telling Petawawa what we should do with our land. That's up for us as council.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Councillor Boutou?
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thank you for bringing us here. I understand the initiative, even just in the sense that for a lot of municipalities, this is a new idea. This is an idea they're not familiar with. FCM is providing some frameworking, some support, and to be honest, because we are already considering it, to me, it's an opportunity to be part of being leaders on this forefront, calling attention to what we're doing, and creating a sort of our own hype in a sense. So I would be in support of this resolution, honestly, because it's so non-binding. It's very much about signaling what we're interested in and what we're interested in pursuing. So I would be in support of this. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Okay, Councillor Carmody makes a good point. We have been exploring this. We have been considering this. This is a federation that's asked us to participate in their national movement. I think in terms of just the way it's written, especially with the dates. Okay. So there is an actual submission deadline of September, what was it, 30th? So if we don't get this in before that date, then we can't participate. Yeah, I just think it's, that drop dead date is just coming up a little too quick for our staff to do any kind of wholesome investigation and put together a wholesome proposal. So although it is a great initiative, and as everyone said around the table, we have been exploring it, we have been investigating it, and I think we may see in the future we will participate in it. To join something with such a small time frame may be a little too ambitious for it. How does everybody feel about that? Okay, so we are progressive, we are innovative, and we are taking the steps that we feel as a municipality we need, and we'll just keep forging ahead. And we'll get there. And people will hear about it once we get to it. Okay, so we'll receive that as information, and then we'll go to councillor reports. Deputy Mayor Sandler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the 22nd of July, an Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion meeting was scheduled to occur. Unfortunately, we didn't have quorum. The reason I'm stating this is because it's always wonderful to have informal conversations that aren't part of the structured agenda. And as a result, I learned so much. And for example, some of the information that was brought forward in terms of pamphlets from with respect to human rights and the importance of how we can move those yardsticks forward within the work that we do, as well as the 7 grandfather teachings with respect to what's represented by the beaver and what that actually means and how we can actually turn our land acknowledgement into an action item, some very good things. So although that meeting didn't occur, it certainly was very beneficial to me. So on the, I guess this week, I've been busy with volunteering, which is not so I see. However, this past week, I was very excited to be part of the letter sign project unveiling, and the positive comments from the community are just simply amazing. And the sign is beautiful, the artist is amazing, and I think it's just going to do wonders for Petawawa, and I'm sure others will talk more about that. And then on Saturday, I was pleased to be able to attend End the Leash on the mayor's behalf and council's behalf to present a 5-year anniversary recognition certificate to them. They had a block party. It was unbelievably busy there. I couldn't believe how crazy busy it was. And of course, being the dog person that I am, I was in absolute heaven because you can bring your pets there. So anyways, that's basically what I've done with respect to council, and thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kern.
Thank you, Mayor Service. I will report on my activities at the next council meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mayor Service. I was actually ill the last time it was time to report, so please bear with me. We're going all the way back to June. So June 16th, I attended the visit by the Ontario Human Rights Commissioner. On June 26th, I attended the opening of Khan's Eatery, but too late to be in photo. On the weekend of June 19th, I attended the Elders Convention that was organized by the Circle of Lodge at the Algonquin campus, and it was a really amazing opportunity and a great way to meet and network with people who are working in that area and interested in that area too. On June 22nd or 26th, I attended the Upper Ottawa Valley Chamber of Commerce Tea Social and helped to celebrate the Lifetime Achievement Award that was given there. On July 1st, I helped support Operation Hot Dog at the town's Canada Day celebration. And again, big shout out to staff for another amazing event. It's a great place to be on Canada Day. On August 7th, I read the land acknowledgement at the grand unveiling of the Petawawa letter signing. We were honored to be joined by Councillor Dale Benoit and Councillor Taylor Ozamo-Ninki from Petawawa First Nation. They brought greetings from the Algonquin territory. And big congratulations to PDAN for coming up with this amazing initiative. Congratulations to staff, and in particular, of course, Christine. It was really wonderful to watch her reaction, I think, to the unveiling. And then on July 22nd, of course, there was no EDI meeting, but as the Deputy Mayor said, it was really nice to sit informally with some members of the committee and just, talk and be together. And that is my word. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On July 23rd, I met with representative from the Beaver Partners of Canada, who donated a check for $10,000 for growing. So I was happy to receive that. Brings us over $17,000 year to date. Thanks to Public Works, who has torn down the old boards, and construction will begin soon. And then on the 25th, I helped host the 4th annual Buckler Pantry Golf Tournament. Another successful year. We raised over $9,000 for the food bank this year, which brings our 4-year total over 30 grand, which has been also very successful. So, and other than that, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the 22nd of July, I participated in the after hours ATV ride, which was designed to be a bit of team building between staff and council as well. So that was good. Found a lot of mosquitoes. On the 23rd of July, I attended the Deep River Hospital community session that they hosted here in Petawawa with regards to the development of their hospice services in Deep River. So just to share some ideas and to get information on what's happening there. On the 24th of July, I attended the pickleball photo opportunity, acknowledging the donation from the Rotary Club to help put that service together, or that facility together. On the 25th of July, I also participated in the for the pantry golf tournament. And despite Councillor Crombie's best efforts, I did remain in the cart for the entire trip. There's reasons there's handles on the roof. On the 7th of August, I as well was at the letter sign unveiling, which was very exciting. And as I was driving here today, there were people there taking their photos in front of the letter sign. And then on the 8th of August, I had the pleasure of representing the mayor at the Ontario Cycling Championships that were being hosted down near the school. I was there for the initial, was the hand cycling and para groups were the first group out, and then the second was the masters. So I was able to participate in giving out their ribbons and their medals at that time. And that's it.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I was also today at the Legion at lunchtime to welcome the rolling barrage that had a stop in Petawawa today, and the group is raising money and awareness in support for PTSD from different organizations, obviously the military, first responders, those kinds of things. Now I'm done.
Well, thank you, Councillor Roos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. July 24th had a site tour of the new Candlewood Suites Hotel in Pembroke, and I wish those owners all the best of luck as well. August 7th, I also attended the unveiling of the new Petawawa letter sign. So glad to see this all come together. It's been a special project for so many people, and I want to say thank you to everyone involved in it, from council here to the staff who worked so hard, and the P-band of people, of course. And there's so many people all in behind the scenes that work so efficiently to get this done. This is very exciting for our town, our residents, and especially visiting guests. This really sets the bar, I feel, for moving our town forward and creating a very special community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I get the feeling Deputy Mayor Savin would like another turn. You were just realizing all the places you were. Would you like another crack? Okay, on July 15th, I attended the first ever meeting of the Deep River Hospital Joint Physician Recruitment Team that they put together along the Deep River and Laurentian Hills and Head Clare and Mariah. It was interesting to get together with all the pertinent people there to decide on not only how to attract physicians to Deep River, but to the entire area as well. So we're looking for good things ahead. On the 20th, I just want to let everybody know that we learned that Highway 3 in St. Thomas, a 7-kilometer stretch from the 401 to a bypass in St. Thomas, was approved by the provincial government for 4-laning. And it has about half the traffic that we do in Petawawa Boulevard. But this particular stretch of highway goes to a Volkswagen battery plant. But we will continue to advocate for the 4-laning of the Petawawa Boulevard, which goes to one of the largest military bases in the country. On the 21st, we sent a built letter to the Chief of Defense Staff outlining our concerns with the VET discount that was implemented by the province, in hopes that we can advocate some of the federal departments in terms of keeping up their end of the bargain when it comes to built and the business education discount. We did get a response, and we're hoping perhaps that we'll get a meeting. On the 22nd, the Algonquin Trail from Mercury Road to Portage Road was finally stone dusted, so we got rid of that little sandy stretch that was causing cyclists and other people problems, and of course the additional dust that comes with the sand. So that's finally complete, thanks to Renfrew County for getting that done for us. It looks great in front of the new sign. On the 23rd, there was also a grand opening of the Candlewood Suites. It's quite impressive how much they've invested into that facility. And they've still got a long ways to go to bring all of the rooms into commission, but it's very impressive for sure. On the 24th, there was a pickleball picture thanking the Rotary Club of Petawawa for their $15,000 donation towards pickleball courts. And I got to partake in a brief pickleball game and almost pulled a couple muscles. I better do some stretching before I play pickleball from now on. On the 24th, I gave the new base commander, Colonel Rock, an official tour of the entire town of Petawawa, to show him all the pertinent features and all the places in Petawawa that most people may not go. On the 25th, I also participated in the pantry golf tournament. I had a better driver than Councilor Donovan did. It was quite calm. Thanks to Councilor Driscoll and all of his committee for putting that tournament on and raising all those funds for the Petawawa Pantry Food Bank. That was great. On the 30th, I had a meeting with the consultants from Cornerstone. They were our compensation consultants. They're doing it.
Takes 3 seconds.
No, it takes 5.
Wait for the first
3, 2.
Breathe more.
Well, just because, in the first 2 seconds, I'm going.